Okay, so Jacob Larson, in interview part two. This is part two. Okay, so we had a brief interlude there. It was just getting good, and then it was like, okay, we're done. Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't put enough time. I apologize, but okay. So you were talking about, or I was talking about how, I mean, you're gaming, you're in a relationship with somebody. What kind of impact does that have?
it can be pretty rough depending on who it is. Like if they haven't had the experiences to be in that situation, then a lot of the times they can be pretty cold-shouldered. And it's kind of hard to hear now after having done the same thing, learned the hard lesson, being able to recognize it now. It's a bit rough.
So you went through that. You went through that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was definitely a cold shoulder. I mean, I try to get her into gaming. Like I built her a whole computer, all this other things, but that's not what people always want to do. If they're not raised into that, if they're not like born doing that, they're not used to doing it, then it's just another activity and they have tons of other activities that we can go and do. But it's about balance for sure. So when you don't have the balance to be like, okay, like I need to set aside time and you have set aside time to go and do other things with your significant other, then it becomes very, very destructive to say the least.
So So I know I have friends that are, into hunting and fishing and stuff like that. And it it's always a thing that kind of blows my mind. I mean, it's they end up, guys. I mean, speaking from the male perspective, we tend to sometimes pick women that aren't necessarily interested in the same things we want to do. And so you get I've got friends that are married to women that, here these guys love to hunt and fish and they refuse to go. These women don't want to hunt, they don't want to fish, they don't want to camp. And then when the guy goes and does these things, well, she's pissed
Yeah,
because you left her and she's been
yeah.
home alone while he's out wandering the woods and stuff like that. So is it kind of like that? Is it on that level where, I mean, the different, you're not leaving the house, you're in the home, but you are literally ignoring them in their own home.
Yep. That's a huge factor. It's the fact that I could go over to you, but I can't get your attention simply because you deem this other thing that you're doing as more important. So it could be argued that it's probably more destructive because at least you're leaving the home. You told them that you're going hunting or fishing. You could set it up for like once or twice a month and you could take a
Yeah, and there's
weekend.
a time limit. There's a
Right.
time limit. It's like I'm going to be gone for 2 days, or I'm going to be gone for a few hours. Whereas with gaming, you don't have to leave the house. You're going to do that all the time.
Yeah, and we could sit there for 6 hours. I mean, we go back to back on games, so it can be way more destructive. But it's definitely about balance in those different in those scenarios, considering those aspects.
So in like you said, I mean, you tried to set her up with a computer, all this other stuff, and it's like she didn't want to become a professional gamer,
I mean,
so she
it's
didn't have
not
the.
as much like being a professional gamer as it was just not putting in as much time. It's like majority of the things that I find entertaining is going to be playing a different game. We could play a different game. She had single player games. Like I got her a bunch of different single player games that she had wanted to play because she got into the aspect of gaming. So she would play a single player game next to me and I would be playing multiplayer, playing with my friends, playing the league matches, playing all these different things, and she would play a single player game. And then I would go, "Hey, do you want to play?" And we'll play a game together and we'd play games together, but there is still an aspect of like you've got to be able to step away from it. It could be like a couple days at a time. I mean, you take a day or two, go do some things for a day, maybe rest for a day and just hang out and just like lay in bed. That's the shit that they like to do. But when you're
That's
sitting
the,
there
that's
and
the
doing
shit.
that,
Maybe it's not shit, Ian. Maybe it's not
I
shit.
mean, I mean, I say
That's
like
the shit they want to do.
it's the
Yeah.
good, yeah, it's like it's like when you're saying it's good, it's like that's the shit, that's
Okay. Yeah,
yeah,
that's the
that's what
shit.
I meant by
Okay,
that.
well,
Yeah.
okay.
That's what they want to do though, is just hang out sometimes. So
So have you met women or been with women that talked a good game, said, "Oh yeah, they love games," because you said you like games and yeah, this great conversation games. And then when it really came down to it, was like, nah, I was just kind of saying that because that's what you enjoyed, and I was trying to show interest, and
I
but
just
it's
wouldn't
not.
talk about it in the first place. Like if they show interest in games, then that's a whole different aspect. But if you're the one running the conversation and you're talking about games and stuff, then yeah, you'll definitely get those scenarios where they're talking about it just because they want to appeal to you. And that's not what I'm about. So half the time I'll like try to throw the conversation off the cliff just to see what they'll do, just to see where it goes, just to see if they want to keep it, where they want to take it, all these different, like you can get a lot out of a person just by trying to like run it off its course and just kind of be like, well, if you want to keep talking, then you have to talk about it, but I'll keep talking if you want to talk, but you just have to run it. So
So have you met women or dated women that you met through your games where you were like, hey, I really like you, we do well, let's meet up.
I've met a couple, but I don't know.
I mean,
That's
is
it's
it a good
all
dating source? I mean,
no,
maybe instead of a dating profile, I should just become a gamer and.
no. I think the biggest dating so the one of the big problems I have with computers or like all the dating scene online, one of the big things right now is like VR chat. So you put your
VR
headset
chat.
on,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's
No.
literally in VR, and then you got like a model, you make your own model. So all these people get to make these models that look nothing like them. And then they make these models that go in there, they're talking to you, they have a great voice, they have all these great concepts, and it just ends after that. I think that's one of the big problems with dating now is that a lot of people are less inclined to commit once they see the person. Whereas when you're dating or you're looking in person, you get to see and then you get to move forward with the conversation. Now everybody gets to move forward with the conversation and then they see them and then they're just like, it's just out the window. It's like, never mind.
Right, because they didn't look as good as their avatar.
Right.
I
It's
mean,
just it's just like um I don't want to say the word, but it's just like looking up, you know,
is it catfishing? Is
interactions.
that the word? It's catfishing where
Not to a degree. I mean, it is in some
kinda.
aspects, but it's not intentional on their for most people. It's not intentional on their thought process. It's
I don't
just
know. I don't know.
to a
I
degree.
mean,
I to a degree it is, but to a degree it's not because you have access to this now and it goes, oh, create who you would want to be. So then,
who
majority
you
girls
want
are
to
like,
be. I mean, right,
oh, I just want to look like this. They got all these different aspects to their avatar. And then you see them
right.
and it's nothing like it. And it's not that they were intentionally catfishing. That's just how they would like to be perceived. And it's not how they're perceived in real life because it's not how they look. It's a lot easier to look better online than it is to in person. So it
Okay, but
just
what about the old? I mean, people always say, physical appearances diminish that sort of thing, and you have to build bonds and build your relationships on something more than the physical experience, or it's not going to work in the long run. So from this aspect, I mean, you end up talking to people online, you develop a kind of a mental connection with them, that sort of thing, and then you meet them, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, no, that's not. I mean, does not the mental connection trump the physical appearance?
For some people, there are more shallow people online than there is in person. Because if you're gonna go out and be a shallow person in person, you're not gonna have that desire or want or any sort of connection as to even be, I don't know, seeing it as a valuable. use of your time as being in person with all these other people, because you're just like, screw them, screw them, screw them. Like none of
I
these
was gonna say,
people.
how do you compete with that though? Because I mean, seriously, I mean, if you're looking at it from that standpoint, there's lots of attractive avatars out there. I mean, you can,
Right.
digitally manipulate whatever you want. So it's like, I mean, when it
So
comes
it does
to,
come down to intellect, conversations that you have, building that rapport. It's everything as being connective as it would be if you were in person. So I can see how it would work online. It's just, and so what I was gonna say is there are generally two routes. So there's like two groups of people. There are the people that are shallow, they like build all this connection, they do all these different things, and then they see a picture of you and they're like, nah. And then there are the other group where they do all these things and they're not even worried about seeing a picture. And if it comes up, it's like, maybe, but half the time, majority of them will be like, you know what, I don't want to see a picture, because they like you as a person. They don't want to know what you look like because they like you as a person. They like the connection they have, and they just want to move forward with that.
okay, and that sounds awesome,
It
but
does.
physical attraction is a thing. It's a thing,
Right.
and you have to be physically attracted to that person. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. So I
Yeah.
mean, obviously when you meet somebody, when you see somebody in person, it has to be a, yeah, okay, otherwise it's a no-go, right?
Right. To a degree, because if you hit a peak, there are
But that's
some
not being
people that
shallow.
throw it out the window where they'll hit a peak with like just having conversations, and they're like, I like this person so much, and that's what they tell themselves is, I like this person so much, I like the conversations we have, I like the character they have, like all these different aspects. You know what, their appearance doesn't matter, I just want to meet them and I want to be able to do it in person now. So there is a certain percentage of people that can manage that, but when you're talking about VR and online interactions and all these different aspects, you're talking about people that are coming from a primarily shallow kind of raising. It's just what they were used to do. So they have the conversations that they like, but at the end of the day, they were raised to be attracted with their eyes. So then they don't see it and they just throw it out.
So would you say that those people are more inclined to, well, I would think that they would be more inclined to not build, a strong relationship online. I mean, I think that they would be, more likely to cheat or look elsewhere or easily swayed, bounced, you know. I mean,
So on.
it always fascinates me. It always fascinates me. I mean, because I haven't done much, the online stuff, but I mean, it always fascinates me when you're talking to a woman and they're like, "Oh, well, I have feelings for somebody they just met." It's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, that's great, you know, but every time I walk by an attractive female in the mall, I have feelings too, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a connection there, something there. So, I mean, how do you combat that when you're on an online format and you're building a rapport with somebody and they're like, well, I like this guy's username profile and avatar a little bit a little bit better.
Yeah. I mean, those are
I mean, the
definitely the
competition is bad enough as it is, Ian. And you're making it
right.
sound like the competition. I mean, there's 8 billion people on the planet now. How do you compete?
So I like VR, people will jump servers. They'll just look for higher player accounts and then they'll jump in the server, talk to as many people as they can. And you can weed people like that out, because there's like two routes of people on what you're talking about. Is there is the person that asks for a picture right away, or there is the person that just goes with it until they see it or they don't, and those other people, I don't know, it's kind of rough because they tend
Well,
to
Democrat.
well, yes, to a degree, because they're looking for this like emotional aspect. There is a huge number, a huge percentage of people that cheat, and it's not physical, it's emotional.
Right. No, I agree.
and
I
they
agree.
go and they talk to all these people and they have all these conversations, but it is like one person after another. They are just going through having these conversations, spilling everything, and just hitting that connection, getting everything they want. And then when they don't reach that point anymore, they go to a new person because they can keep doing it as long as they have a new person that is
Right.
interested in hearing all of the stuff that they want to spew. They're always going to have that sort of emotional connection because it's not a real connection. It's just being able to spew, get a bunch of compliments, or oh, you shouldn't have to deal with that and all this, and like I would do this and I would do that for you. Is like,
It would seem to me, and like I said, and maybe maybe I'm looking at this wrong, the direction of this wrong, but I mean, it would seem to me that you would be more prone to that, and there would be more of that going on with an online format than on an individual one-on-one basis. If you're actually physically in front of somebody, making a connection, talking for hours. I mean, back in back in my day, fuck, I hate even saying that, but I mean, we would talk for hours in person, and so you would only have that person to talk to. That would be your focus. That would be your connection. You're not typically going to have the same experience with another person the next night.
right.
But online, you could have that same convo, the same, this is how I was raised, this is what I do for a living, this is all this other stuff where you're sharing things with somebody. You could have that with like half a dozen different people in a matter of 6 hours.
It makes you more prone to being comfortable. That's why I don't like VR chat to begin with. I don't like, like I want people to be happy and I want them to find the things that they like. But going online, doing the VR chat, doing all these virtual activities, all these different things, there is a lot of negative compensation that comes with it, and people can't handle it simply enough. They don't know
how
what they're getting into.
how do you distinguish yourself? How do you separate yourself from the other thousands and thousands and thousands of other people that the person you're interested in is going to be making? How do you do that from an online perspective?
From an online perspective, uh I mean, that's the issue. I think, in my opinion, in an online perspective, it comes down to just selling yourself. You're selling yourself to what they want. That's it. I don't do it, but that's how I see it. That's what it looks like. That's what I've seen for being on the cusp of like looking in and like kind of being around the scene, but just not jumping in. Just kind of looking at how all of it interacts. It looks like you're trying to sell yourself as what they want. You're like building, what are they looking for? How do I sell myself as what they're looking for? And then you have to just commit that selling point. You're just looking to
Right, but
be
the
what they
competition is,
want.
in if you were to do that in person, in your location, your town, I mean, you're competing with, maybe, 2 dozen other guys, in on an online format. I mean, it's 8 billion different people there, um, that are all trying to do the same thing. I mean, I just think that things are harder. In some aspects, people say, well, the online dating thing is great, and you can meet a lot of people, but I think in some ways it's actually harder
Yeah.
to establish that sincere, honest relationship with somebody in an online field, because literally, I mean, you're not there's nothing special. I mean, it's like, how do you distinguish yourself? I don't see that happening. I mean,
No,
I don't know. Maybe I'm
I completely agree. Majority of the like big kind of stories that I'll hear people talking about where they've met their significant other has been overseas. I think the number one kind of aspect for getting a significant other is mystery. If you come from some other sort of culture, some other state, country, whatever it is, if you're from another location, another world, everything is different to this other person. you're gonna be more attractive than if they were talking to somebody that they've been in the same state for each other's same lives. You have more mystery, you have more to offer in terms of what they could learn about you. There's different
Yeah, I
aspects.
would agree. I would agree. I mean, there's definitely a different element added there because they have more of things that you don't know that you
Right.
can, and so conversations are a little bit more
Fluid, bit easier.
yeah, they're just easier conversations. So I mean, you talked about you've talked in the past about going to Japan before, taking a trip to Japan. Um, so is that still part of the
That's
works, or I
my
mean,
plan. That's my plan to meet my significant other. I want to
see,
meet,
I was gonna ask you. I mean,
yeah.
is there something behind that? I mean, is that
I mean, as I tell anybody, it would be I would like to reestablish my bloodline. I'm part Japanese, so I would love to meet a Japanese girl, have kids that are Japanese, and just get back into that. Um, but I don't know. I love the culture. I love that that's my family heritage. I would love to learn the language, get in there, learn all the things that you're not supposed to do. Because there's a lot of different things when you're drinking tea, eating food. I mean, you're supposed to slurp when you're eating your noodles, your ramen. There's a lot of different things that show signs of respect that you wouldn't think of in America. I mean, I already slurped my noodles to begin with, but now I know that's a sign of respect. So I'm like, all right. So if I don't like the noodles, I can't slurp as loud.
yeah, you can't
Yeah,
slur.
slurp
Yeah.
a little softer, but there's different things like that, which is all very interesting. But it's just going over there. The other thing
So
though is
do you have your passport? I mean, you got your passport?
I would have to get it because I was looking to actually get I want to get a house in Japan, but I think I would have to live in unless I have the money to just buy it outright. I would have to live in Japan for a little bit to at least establish a loan to be able to get a
Well,
house.
I was gonna say two questions popped into my head the moment you said that. Number one, what's the exchange rate? Okay, exchange rate. Is US dollar higher or lower? Because I mean, typically, and how much?
I
And then
think
number
the
two,
US's dollar is higher.
what are the immigration rules? Some countries have immigration rules that do not allow people from outside to purchase property.
No, so I was looking at their property rules and I think it was either a year or 2 year, but that was just for a loan. So I wouldn't know what it would be for purchasing housing outright because the market is kind of cheap. I'm not even gonna lie, it's kind of cheap. I was looking at it, it was like 20 to 30,000 for like a nice house.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay, that's interesting. That's
but
interesting.
it's
I,
like
I I might I
central.
might be interested in taking a trip to Japan with you.
Dude, it's
I
I'm
might be interested.
I'm very keen towards that being one of my major highlights for one of the things that I'd like to do. But I mean they like foreigners. They would like a lot of them would like somebody that speaks Japanese. So I would like to learn Japanese before I go over there. But a lot of them like foreigners. And I'm not looking to have an easy way in, but that I am looking for somebody that would be Japanese of my
You would
heritage
so
in
you would
general.
but you would consider, I mean, you would consider, dating somebody, meeting somebody from Japan, totally different culture. Would you move there or have them move here? Or,
I would definitely live out there for a bit, and then it just becomes a talking point. Like, what are you looking for? Do you want to stay in Japan? Because a lot of the things that I've been looking at for Japan specifically is like I had a friend, he was more of a coworker, but he was telling me about is like I lived in Japan for a good minute, and while you can have a good exchange rate from US dollar to Japan, you're talking about like they have warnings all the time for tsunamis. You have horrible weather because it's like humid, it's
it's an
hot, and
island,
it's
dude. It's a sliver of an
right.
island out in the Pacific. You're gonna have shit.
Right. So there's all these different aspects of it being an island. You have these weather conditions, but it's also hot, and then you get all the tsunami warning. I mean, there is weather conditions that are uncomfortable. They were talking about how you were always on edge for like an earthquake, being that
Right.
you're on a plate of all the plates that make up our crust, you're on a plate, and it's just a little island that's actually above the sea waters. And then you have all the other things that go on. You have earthquakes across the world, but it goes straight through the core, hits the other side, explodes outward, and then it's creating tsunamis on this island. There's so many worries. And then, not even to mention, as North Korea shooting missiles over Japan all the time. It's a missile test.
Okay, but let's be honest. And we've all seen the North Korean missiles. I mean, they're not really missiles; they're cardboard. But
They're pretty cheap. It's like if you took a little rocket kit when you were a kid and you press the button and the rocket would shoot up and then you'd go retrieve
right,
it. Except
you're
it's
like,
just
yay!
maybe like
It was a
hundred.
successful launch.
Right. It was 100. We pressed the button, we shot the missile up, and it landed somewhere else. And we'll just have to go retrieve it so we could do it again, make it look like we're scary.
So the moral of the story, folks, in case you missed it, okay, when it comes to this next generation coming up, I mean, they have they have it harder to meet themselves, establish connections, real relationships with people, and the solution is to just travel to another country. Go to another country. That's the answer. And it's actually easier to do that now than it's ever been in the history of the globe. So
Yeah.
that is me and Ian have solved it. That is the solution to success.
I would say on my part, a huge factor for me is limiting like your children's time on the internet. And you can't just limit it as to be like, oh, you just can't be on the internet from this time to this time. It's got to be like you're just so interactive that they don't want to be on the internet. The internet isn't that it's bad, it's that there is so much that you can get that there's just so much to go wrong. If you have all this access to all this connectivity all the time, you're going to develop bad kind of communications or ways of perceiving how to communicate and connect with another person. You could just burn a bridge in 5 seconds. You just be
Yes,
like,
it's not real connection. It's not real
right.
connection. Right?
But if you get something that appeals to you on the connective side, you can perceive it as a real connection. And then the other person could do the same to you, burn the bridge. And then you're left there scarred as to be like, how could this person do this to me?
That is, I mean, that is one thing that I gotta admit, I do like about online. I mean, when you need somebody in your life that's toxic, or if you have somebody in your life that's toxic and you need them to go, you can literally push a button and they can go. They can go away. You don't have to
Right.
deal with the upfront in face blah blah blah. I mean, you can literally bow out. And you know, I don't have a problem doing that in my personal life, but online life, I mean, I just it's like bliss to me. It's like, wow, this was so easy. You
Yeah,
can just go away. I don't have to deal with you anymore. You're just gone, and so there is. I do kind of appreciate that aspect of the internet, but it's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword. I mean, I've
I
had people do
agree.
that to me too, and it's like, hey, that kind of sucks, but it is what it is. You go, okay, well now I know it wasn't as.
Because it could be for a reason that you thought was so silly as to just cut it. And then
Yeah.
it's just like, how are you that? What caused you is to be like, I have to block, remove, do all these different things. Like, there's no internet. There was no conversation as to, okay, well, you, I don't know, you upset me in some form or another, and then you get to respond as to why I don't understand that. How did I upset you? And you get to learn from it. So I don't actually in the dating scene, there is ghosting. It's a
Yep.
huge
I was
thing.
just gonna say ghosting. Yeah.
it kind of grosses me out to some degree because they will just reach the silliest conclusion and just ghost a person, and that person has nothing to learn from because there was no conversation as to be like, look, this is what I didn't like, this is where you went, all these different aspects. They don't get that. They just go, oh, I fucked up. Now I get to learn where I made that mistake and hopefully I figure it out for the next one. It doesn't help people, but
Right.
that's a huge thing for girls right now because they are just speed dating. It is 5 seconds. You got 5 seconds of my time. You don't impress me, dude. It's the next guy. Yeah,
Right.
money.
And
Well,
it's
what's your
all of,
personality?
yeah, and it's all about entertainment, and it's all about that brief, like I said, that superficial feelings bullshit. They get that high from it. Somebody new, they get to explain stuff. They have a little thing, and then they bounce to the next one, and it just keeps continuing, continue, continue, continue. And you don't actually establish any, you don't actually go through any bullshit, solve any problems, have any conflict, which is key ingredients to long-term relationship.
Right.
And I honestly, like I said, just I mean, even after talking to you, I don't know how you overcome that outside of, like you said, you have this idea of going to another country. Maybe that'll work, but I don't know, man. I don't think that. I think that that's a huge hurdle, man. It's a huge hurdle.
It is. I was actually reading an article, and this Japanese lady or Chinese lady was talking about how she was like, look, if you want to meet a girl, right, and you want to have that long-term relationship, you want to build the rapport, you want to like go the distance, you know, you want to really try and see if you can make it work, or just have the time to be able to see if you get to make it work, is like go rural, like go inland, go to like kind of poorer villages, go to people that appreciate what they have rather than are looking for what they don't have. All these other people that are in like big cities and stuff be like, how much money you have, what do you do for a job, what are your plans for your life? Is like those are the main questions because they're looking for somebody that has the most exquisite questions. When you go to a fishing village and you're just interacting with these people and you start to build that connection, it's not about what you have or what you could have in the future. It's about how you are as a person. It's
Well,
much more real.
I am sold. Okay, you have sold me. I'm keen on this. If you want to go to Japan, I can actually help you make this happen. I mean, this is a thing. You
Okay,
know me well enough to know. I mean, I can do this, and I love travel. So I mean, this could be something we could do. You know that, right?
I'm down. I'm down.
You are down.
I'll come back for a little bit just to like build up after we've gone, but it's definitely something where I'm looking to go like long term for a good, at least like 2 years. But I'm down to just travel, get the gist of it, be
Well,
like, all
I
right,
mean,
I'm
if
gonna go
if if
back
we
eventually.
if we did a exploratory Japan trip, okay, um, it would I would take a minimum of 2 weeks. I mean, I would do 2 weeks minimum. And I'm not, a big fan of schedule stuff. So I'd kind of just kind of
Wing
like
it.
show up. Yeah, wing it. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
same, dude. I'm the
So
same way, man.
we're on the
Yeah.
same
Yeah,
page. Okay.
yeah.
So this could work. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, first steps, passport. If you don't have that, we got to work on that. But yeah, I mean, I'm in, I'm in because it definitely, I mean, that definitely appeals to me. Yeah. Let's go check some stuff out.
No, it'd
Do
be
you
good.
know anybody in Japan? I mean, do you have like an anchor? If we got
I
into trouble, I mean, I'm not going to get into trouble, but I mean,
I
if
don't know as if they're still in. I have Japanese
occasionally I get into
relatives
trouble.
in Hawaii. I'm not sure if they have family in Japan. I'm not too connected to them, so I'd have to talk to my mom and start talking to them about how I want to go to Japan and all these different things. Because I know I have Japanese family in Hawaii, but I don't know if they
I just
extend into
know,
Japan.
I just know from, past experience, it tends to help to have somebody at the location you're going to. If you get into a snag, go, hey, what's going on? This is what I did. This is how it happened. How do I fix this? And they know the rules, the laws, the regs. They'd be like, this is what I can do. I mean, if you have somebody like that, um, it's helpful because, like I said, it's not like I'm I'm not out to get in trouble, but I find myself in those predicaments occasionally, and it's like, what did I do? I didn't
They
do
have
anything. But
some crazy laws. I mean, like Singapore, you can't spit or smoke in the street. You
okay,
can't even chew gum because they're worried that you're gonna spit. You're gonna worry. They're worried you're gonna spit the gum out. You're gonna throw the cigarette butt. They have the cleanest streets, but they have the strictest laws
okay,
to get that to come through. So, I mean, I could talk to my Japanese teacher from high school as well, but finding like a family would be a good start. If you find a family that's okay with you having you stay, and they'll even take you out to places where they're like,
well, I don't want to stay
there's
with
all
anybody,
these,
man. I just
but it's the aspect where it's like, oh, there's all these tourist hotspots, but this is real Japan. Like this is where you would want to go if
right.
you were Japanese.
That's what I'd be interested in. Yeah,
Right, but they also get to tell you is like these are the manners that are expected when you go out. Like if you're drinking tea, you have to drink with two hands. You have it in one hand, you have your other hand underneath, and you sip it just a little bit. Same thing I said with the ramen. You got to be slurping the noodles if you really like
dude, I'm
it.
in.
Like,
I'm in. I want to go to the rice paddy. I want to live in the dirt. The dirt. I'm in. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm all in. I
and
like
man,
this.
the families will
This is a
help you.
good plan.
I'm down.
This is a good
Yes,
plan.
I've always been trying to go to Japan. It's just been whether because I would like to at least learn some of the language before I go over
What's with
there.
the try though? I don't understand the try part.
Yeah, I shouldn't say try. I
What's
so
the difference? What's so
I could
difficult?
have done it in high school. I could have went in high school, but I mean, you gotta raise funds. And the last time I raised funds was I went to like a Christian camp, and then we got to go down to California. We got to go surf. We got to do a bunch of different things. So I wasn't too big on like the building the funds part. I don't like to put stress on me. If I had the money, like I'll go do it. But like I would, high school and then that camp, like I didn't work then. So it's not like I could just pay my way. So it's a lot harder for me to just ask and get people to help
Okay,
me.
so in Japan it's the yen, right?
Yes.
Let me look here. What's the exchange rate?
I'm pretty sure you get more for the Japanese dollar or like a dollar in Japan. You get more for a yen than you do like a US dollar. So the exchange rate's generally pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. One US dollar is 134.93 yen. So that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Um, yeah, I mean that's definitely good. It's not, the most stellar exchange rate, but it's not bad, so
It gets better in the higher numbers.
34, 35 cents extra on a dollar, that's not bad. No, I mean, I think that makes things much more achievable. That's why I always look at the exchange rate. It's like how can I make my dollars go farther, by going to a different country, you know.
Yeah.
I don't I kind of stay away from the countries that have the dollar for dollar match or they're really close to US dollar. I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
I want to go to the one. I gotta want to go to the ones that have the great, big mass. I want to get 60 cents extra on every dollar when I step off the plane. I mean, that's kind of what I'm looking for.
Right.
So
And that's why I was interested in getting a house in Japan because it was like they're like, oh, 100,000 yen. But then you look it up and it's like $30,000. You're like,
exactly.
that's not bad for a house. I could
No,
definitely pull that. Yeah.
exactly.
So
Okay, so you think you can swing that this year? A Japan trip this year?
it would probably be the end of this year or like into the next year. I could swing a Japan trip. I would have to end up telling my job they got to find somebody else. But yeah, I could definitely do it towards the end or the next year.
I've got two Vegas trips I got to go to this year, but yeah, I'm up for one solid trip. So yeah, we can start working on it. We'll start working on it.
Yeah, and we can look at what the weather is, so what best season it is to go as well.
Monsoon season. We want it to be wet and rainy and cold and miserable.
Yeah, okay. Just like Oregon.
Yeah, just like Oregon right now.
Yeah, we just got back from Tahoe today, and then it was raining when we got out of the car, and my brother was like, "Oh, it's so good to be back in Oregon." And I was like, "What? Because it's raining?"
Yeah.
Yeah, because it
Yeah.
was just cold and dry out where we were. So
All right. Well, I think we wrap things up pretty good. We've established that, you know, you gamers are kind of screwed when it comes to relationships. And so I think we're good.
yeah, yeah. Well, it was good. I definitely appreciated this.
Well, I appreciate you chatting. Like I said, I mean, I'm not opposed to doing these, but yeah, it's just, you know, with the YouTube channel and stuff. I mean, I don't think they'll flag this, but you know,
You'd be
I don't
surprised.
know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know. I know.
Shouldn't
I mean,
should be fine.
they shouldn't, but you never know. So anyway,
Yeah.
appreciate the conversation. Good chatting with you, Ian, and we'll start working on our Japan trip. Okay, and that will be one hell of a blog and video blog if we do that because we will
No,
have
that would be good.
stories.
Yeah.
So that'll be good. All right, buddy. Thanks for chatting. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye.